Hadn't played with an old photo in a while, so I thought I would this time. Here's our original photo. It's kind of faded. It's got that nice old sepia tone, but almost too little of it, and there's just detail that's not there. So let's see if we can't try to bring some of this back. So we want to ultimately put the color back in, so we'll pick up this color right now. This is the color we're going to actually use later on. For now, we won't worry about it. Actually, we need to do that later. Sorry, because first of all, we want to add a gradient map adjustment layer, and want to have black for that. And right away, you see that does a good job starting to convert this to a black and white photo. Then we're also going to add a channel mixer on top of that. The reason I like doing it this way is because we've already got a good start, and now we can just sort of tweak it with the channel mixers. I'm going to move it over a little bit so we can see what we're doing. As you've probably heard before, the general rule of thumb is to make these numbers add up to 100, but I'd like to add to that to say, at the same time, keep tweaking the numbers until it looks good to you, and because it's an adjustment layer, you can certainly try to print it, see if you like it, and if you don't, just double click on it and make further adjustments. That's one of the advantages of doing it this way, is you always have that ability to change your mind. Now, as we look more close at this, let's zoom in a little bit. If there were any areas that we felt we needed to fix up, this actually looks pretty good. But if there were any things, I would be clicking back on the background layer and cloning over it. But the biggest thing I notice in this document is that the areas around the outside are very faded. So let's try a couple of different things. First of all, I'm going to make a very rough selection around the part that actually looks reasonably good at this point, and then feather that. So I'll control or right click so I can feather, and I'll feather it a pretty high amount, and I'm going to inverse that selection, so I really want to select the outside area. Make sure we're on the background layer, duplicate, and then change the blend mode to multiply. Now that's a little much, so we'll just lower the opacity, and we're going to try to get to a point where we don't see a really noticeable difference. So see how it's bringing some of that detail back in. If there's areas like down here that's too much, I could simply make a layer mask, or even just take my eraser tool. Let's make it a little bigger, set the opacity somewhere around 60%, and just kind of erase that little noticeable line right down at the bottom. Okay, so that's where we're at. At this point, it's starting to look pretty good, but we want to introduce that kind of sepia tone that we had back again. So let's hide these layers so I can now Dave, use the eyedropper and pick up that original kind of color. And we'll add a solid color adjustment layer. And the reason I like doing this, it takes me 2 steps, but I'll show you why I like it this way. At first, it's going to look, well, bad, because we have to then change the blend mode to color. The reason I like doing that, that's not exactly the color I had in mind, but now I can just double click on it and go through the color picker and try different shades until I find something that's more along the lines of what I was picturing. So I like this one because it's a lot more visual way. Just like I said, takes that extra step or so, but now you can really start experimenting and trying to come up with the color you like. And again, the advantage of doing it this way is then when you print it, you can decide whether you like it or not. Now that's one last thing I would probably do, and I'm going to do it right below this color layer, and that's to add back some of that old vignetting kind of look. So I'm going to change my foreground color to black and fill. Hide this for a second so I can see what I'm doing, and then just make a selection that leaves a bit of a border around the outside. We're going to feather that a pretty high amount, show this layer again, and then hit delete to basically punch out this area. Now it's a little too dark once again, so we'll just lower the blend mode and get some of that nice little effect. You can always, if you don't like that, if it's a little too intense, you can always go back, do a bit of a blur, just make sure you're on the correct layer, and now we're blurring that feathered edge to soften it even more, something like that. So basically we have gone from this, let me move this out of the way, I'll show you, this is my original photo, kind of faded and a little bit of that color in, to this, where we have much richer tones and some of the detail back, but done in a way that we can certainly try printing it, check the colors, and if anything's not to our liking, we can change any of these layers, because they're all adjustment layers, to tweak it just like that. It's amazing things you find when you're poking around looking for photos old photos to work with. Here's one many of you know that I sing in a barbershop group. You just may not realize how long I've been doing it for. Sure. My name's Dave Cross. I shall see you next time. Sweet Adeline. See ya.